Okay guys, so this is the Planar IEM from Kinera and it's called the Celeste, or maybe they might change the name of this because this is actually a prototype. It's not the actual retail unit. So once the actual retail unit is out, I will do my proper review. And also in this very quick impression, I've already compared it with the Dioko and of course the Kirin. Right, all three of them are planar IEMs. So what do I think? Now the soundstage I would say is pretty similar to the Kirin's. It's wide, right? It's got nice depth as well, but it's not as wide as the Dioko's. So in terms of soundstage, this two is almost the same. In terms of the resolution and the detail retrieval, this one and this one is almost the same. I still think that the Dioko's has got the most details, or it does present to me the most details because it's got more of a balanced tuning. Okay, for imaging and the sound separation, right? So I think this tree is almost similar. This one has got the edge, right, in terms of the sound separation. Okay, let's talk about tuning. I think tuning wise, this two is almost similar, but the Dioko has got the most balanced tuning out of the three. So in terms of the tone and the timbre and the overall listening experience, this two is more of a fun listening experience, more of a U-shaped tuning, but this one is more of a balanced tuning. The Dioko is more of a balanced tuning. So if you are looking for a more fun type of a planar IEM, it's either these two. All right, so that's the very first impression which I heard from this one. But in terms of the bass, I think the Kirin has got a more forward bass. Thus, this one, in terms of the Kirin, would sound a bit more fun than the Celeste. Right, Celeste is somewhere in between the Dioko's and the Kirin's, right? So if you look at the chart here or the graph, right, the bass, the Kirin has got the most forward bass, and then followed by the Celeste, and then you have your Dioko's. Okay, same goes for the mid bass. In fact, the mid bass, the Celeste and the Kirin, they are almost similar, but you can see a very big difference here for the Dioko's. That's why the mids would sound more forward in the Dioko's as compared to these two. Okay, so for the I think the bass, right, I think this one is somewhere in between, right? And then you have your mids. So I think the mids, it depends very much on the bass, right? So this one would sound more forward than the Kirin. So instruments and the vocals, they sound more forward. At the same time, they've got that bit of a warm type of tone, and that heavy note weight as well. It's not as heavy as the Kirin, and also it's not light than it's not lighter than the Dioko's. Dioko's has got the lightest tone as compared to these two. For the treble, right? So treble wise is the biggest difference, and I would say for the Celeste, it's got not as bright type of treble as compared to these two. Of course, the brightest would be the Kirin, right? The least bright, it would be the Celeste, but I'm not saying that this is not bright. This is still bright. It's a bright IEM, right? But it's not as bright as this two. So it's not a very harsh type of treble, but it may be a bit shouty. And if you look at the 8K region here, the Celeste is almost similar to the Dioko's, right? So I think for treble, yeah, it's almost as shouty. I'm not saying that all the tracks are shouty to me, right? Only certain tracks you may find it a little bit shouty, but it's almost close to the Dioko's. The Kirin's, they sound the least harsh. Okay, now for the air, right? So when there's cymbal strikes, the air determines how resonant that cymbal strike is, how far and how long it goes on before it fades away. And I would say the Dioko has got the most air, right? Most air, then followed by the Kirin, and then followed by the Celeste. And Celeste actually is the closest to the Harman target. Okay, so for tuning wise, for the treble, I would say my preference would be the Dioko, and then the Celeste, and then the Kirin. Yeah, but overall, the overall listening experience, yeah, if you want something more analytical and more critical listening, then it would be the Diokos. But if you want something in between, fun and critical listening, then the Celeste. Alright, so that's what I hear, alright, for my very first impression. Of course, this will not be the final unit. Again, as I mentioned, this is the prototype. So once the actual one is out, I will do my proper review. Right, so that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until I do my actual review for this Celeste, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the actual review. Cheers.